Hello and welcome to the very first episode of the Interstellar Business Show, hosted by Andrew Ball of Bright Arts Agency. This is the podcast for technology companies and business owners who want to smarten up their act. Stay tuned for ideas and advice that will help you grow more, work less, and enjoy life. Coming up on today's show, I'll be talking with Mark Peacock, the pricing coach. Have you ever wondered if you're using the right pricing strategy, or whether your services are priced too high or too low? Well, worry not. Mark's got the answers for you. Yes, in today's episode, we are going deep on pricing. And by the end of the podcast, you'll finally understand why and how your business should be improving its pricing. Coming up on today's show, I'll be talking with Mark Peacock, the pricing coach. But first, as this is the very first episode, I wanted to share with you my inspiration and ideas for this show. And I think a good place to start is with the name, the Interstellar Business Show. Why Interstellar? Well, it's inspired by Christopher Nolan's film of that name. The movie Interstellar brilliantly touches on the preciousness of time, especially the fleeting time we share with loved ones. Now, spoiler alert coming up, if you haven't seen Interstellar, you should go away and watch it now. It's a brilliant film, okay, but I am going to be talking about it now, so yeah. Otherwise, skip ahead if you must. So carrying on with my explanation. At the end of the film, Matthew McConaughey's character is finally reunited with his daughter after being away in space. But here's the catch. Time for him has moved at a different pace. So when they're finally reunited, his daughter is now an old lady, while he's only aged a few days. He may have completed his mission, but he's done so at the cost of missing out on his daughter growing up. And I think this is the risk that many business people face, that we're so wrapped up in our business mission that we miss out on life. And we miss out on the things, friends, and people that we love. Let me ask you, do you ever feel like Matthew McConaughey's character, strapped to your rocket, your business, with life rushing by? I know I do. And I think the challenge for today's business people is finding a way to balance business growth, work experience, and quality of life. So this show is not only about how you can grow your business the smart way, it's also about how you can work and live smarter. I hope to bring you insights and interviews that will make a tangible impact on these three areas of your life. Of course, we'll be talking about technology and business strategy, but we'll always do it with an eye on the triple bottom: your business growth, work experience, and quality of life. Now I can read your mind. You're wondering, what does Andrew mean by work experience? I mean, we'll be talking about the work you do during the day. We spend a long time at work. I think it's important that you spend time doing work that you love, or work that moves the business needle. And I certainly don't think you should be doing boring, repetitive, or frankly sometimes pointless work. So I'll be doing my best to share ideas that will help you and your team have a better working day, so you can grow, work, and live smarter. Okay, that wraps up my explanation for the show. Right, let's move on to this week's guest. So I'm pleased to welcome to the show today Mark Peacock, the pricing coach. Welcome, Mark. Can you tell us a little bit about what you do?
Yeah, morning, Andrew. Yes, so as the name implies, I'm a pricing coach. I help businesses improve their pricing. Pricing is what I think is the most important part of your business, yet all too often it's the one aspect that most business owners leave till last to think about how they can improve it. But actually, there's loads of simple things that any business can do to improve its pricing. So that's what I do. I help businesses get to a better place with their pricing strategy.
And why do most business owners fail to get started with their pricing and fail to improve it?
I think there's a number of reasons. I think fear plays a big part in that. So we're afraid to put up our prices because, we think we'll lose customers or think we'll lose sales volume. And also we don't know how our competitors react. So it's the fear of the unknown. Also, there's a lack of awareness of what other pricing strategies that businesses could use. I show people that there are loads of different ways to think about pricing. None of them are difficult in terms of what I teach, and they can all make a significant difference. But there's a lack of awareness as to what you can do with your pricing. So, yeah, fear, lack of awareness, and also a degree of inertia, I think. Businesses, once they're up and running, they just get stuck with their pricing method. They find something that works okay, and they just stick with it, and then they fail to renew or update their pricing strategy as their business starts to grow. So I think those are the main reasons why people don't look at their pricing more often.
Okay. And what do you think most people are actually getting wrong with their pricing right now?
I think the main thing is most businesses are underpricing and undervaluing what they do. And that's driven by competitive forces in your market, your industry. You think that if other people are undercutting you, you need to do the same just to keep up, as it were. And also, we tend to remember the last difficult conversation that we had with a prospect where price was the most important factor and they were trying to batter you down. We remember that more than the situations where we have won business with customers who are willing to pay more. So that influences our thinking, and we decide that price is the most important factor. Whereas in fact, it's just one of many reasons why people buy from you. So underpricing what we do, undervaluing and not charging correctly, all the consequences of not looking at our pricing more carefully, I would say.
And I would actually, one of the things I would say there about people worrying that their prices are too high and therefore not wanting to do it, and they're getting it wrong because it's sometimes because they're not doing a good enough job of explaining what they do to people. So actually, if they did a bit of better job of explaining the value they deliver, then actually they'd probably find it easier to justify the pricing to themselves and their clients.
Absolutely right. So if you have got a slightly more of a premium price position, it's really important to work out, your sales story to support that. I say pricing is both an art and a science. The science is what's the number, the art is how do you communicate that number, and being clear on your reasons for how you communicate that price and justify it are just as important as working out the number itself. So completely agree.
And in terms of a priority, so we've got the three areas of our business that we could work on: cutting costs, increasing volume, getting more clients, and then pricing. How important should pricing be to our businesses?
Yeah, so I think, the three things you talk about there are all key drivers of your profit. So price times volume minus your costs equals your profit. But generally, I think most business owners spend most of their time focusing on revenue or volume growth and or cutting costs. Whereas for me, price is the one we spend the least amount of time thinking on. But actually, if we spent more time thinking on it, it would deliver a significantly more value. There's loads of studies that show, for example, McKinsey quotes a 1% improvement in price can lead to a 10% improvement in profits. I have other studies that show a 5% improvement in price can lead to a 20 or 30% improvement in net profit. So a small improvement to your price can make a big difference to your bottom line. But obviously you've got to do it in a way that your customers are going to value and still going to want to buy. And that is perfectly possible. And that's what I'm about, helping people achieve that.
100%. And I'm a big fan of pricing the right way as well. And I really loved your talk. And I just think it is so important for businesses that we do need to look at it, and not only look at it once, it's something we need to work on a long-term basis, right?
Absolutely. Pricing is not just something you do once a year when you set your budget. It's something you need to be constantly reviewing, because ultimately it's about your value proposition. What do you do adds value to your customers, and how can you improve it? So you should never stop, worrying and thinking about that. So I always encourage people to, have at least quarterly pricing reviews, not necessarily to make a change, but to make sure it's still working. And then also think about, in your 3-year business plan, if you have one, setting your target prices for the outer 3 years and working out a plan for how you want to get there, rather than pricing just being a number, an input or a calculation that's done once you've worked out your costs and your volumes. So yeah, I think it's really important, and I would encourage everybody to spend a lot more time on it, because it has a massive impact. And actually, it doesn't have to be scary or difficult. There's lots of ways to cope with it.
And talking about impact, I personally believe that pricing not only impacts your profit, but it is also a branding and positioning issue as well. Would you agree with that, Mark?
Completely. I'm sure you know Seth Godin, the famous marketing thinker. So he quotes that pricing affects your marketing and marketing affects your pricing. And what he means by that is that the two have to be in sync. Your branding, your marketing, your pricing all have to work together. You wouldn't catch Apple with premium products at premium prices and poor marketing, would you? So it's absolutely vital. If you're trying to present a high quality service and you've got cheap prices, there's a disconnect between the two, and people will see that and they'll see through it. Price has a massive influence on your customer's perception of quality, and if it's not correctly aligned, people will see through it and they won't trust what you're offering as much as if you have correctly aligned your pricing with your product and your marketing and your brand. So absolutely, they've all got to work together and be in sync.
And do you think that remains true whether you're selling Ferraris or whether you're selling technical services to people?
Definitely. It applies to any product or service, B2B or B2C. So the Ferraris of the world, they tend to get this right. So, high value cars with high prices, but, there's lots of reasons why people want to buy a Ferrari. There's nothing to do with need. Nobody needs a Ferrari, but everyone wants one, right? So it's about selling the emotional package as much as the rational package, which is the car itself and all its features. Or whether you're selling technical services or marketing services or whatever it is that you do, setting your pricing strategy correctly in line with your, what you want for your business, where you want to get to, and what your customers value is really important and actually can unlock quite a few problems if you approach it correctly.
And going back to Ferrari, something like a luxury car is really interesting to me because I think about the price of the parts that go into that car compared to the price value. A Ford Fiesta, what's that, £20,000, and a Ferrari, $500,000 up. But there's not the cost of parts. The Ferrari is not got that, 20 times the amount of parts in cost. Part of the price is justified through the ticket price,
Yeah, exactly.
because it's exclusive. That helps to keep the price up and the value up as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So any product, that has what I call prestige pricing, so luxury cars, luxury watches, luxury fashion items, the cost to manufacture the product itself will have no bearing on the price. And the price is determined by things like the brand and what it represents, the emotional appeal of the product, and possibly, the level of R&D that's gone into creating that product or creating the brand in the first place. And this is one of the most important lessons that we need to understand, is that pricing is not linked to cost. Pricing has everything to do with what customers perceive as value, and it has nothing to do with your internal costs to deliver or produce that product or service. We get stuck on this issue of, well, I need to know my costs so I can add a margin on and calculate the price. And that's what everybody does initially, and it's a way of doing your pricing, but it's also one of the least effective ways, I would suggest. So yeah, we can learn a lot from the prestige guys, but also things like coffee, right? What's the marginal cost to buy a latte in your favorite high street brand? It's minimal, but you're happy to pay £2, £3, £4 for that coffee, even though its unit cost is probably less than 50p. So you're buying into, the brand, the experience, the quality of the product that you're expecting, and all sorts of things. And and the price is set at a level to reflect and capture that value. So yeah, thinking about value pricing is really interesting, and we can learn lessons from lots of other brands and manufacturers as well.
And so moving back towards maybe service and technical service businesses, I'm just thinking about how we can create that extra premium value. Do you think like having accreditation, or let's say someone like SAP, for example, they're a huge software company. I suppose having them on your website gives you a bit of extra value.
Yeah, definitely. So, or anything that you can do to add to your credentials, to your overall brand, what it represents, your expertise, these are all good things to have. There's nothing I would say that wouldn't encourage that approach. So, having credentials, whether it's ISO 9001 or whatever it is, these are all good things because they all add to the value of the brand, and that's what people are buying into. You've got to sell the overall proposition, create the overall value proposition, and then put, a price in line with that. So yeah, that those are all important. They, I would say, prerequisites for good pricing. But you've also got to have, great service, great products, and great, offer great value. All of those things need to come together, and then you can put a good price on what you do.
Yeah, you can't just go and stick a high price on
No,
on
no.
something. Yeah. So moving on to some more practical tips and ideas for our listeners.
Yeah.
How would they know if they're charging too little or too much? Is there an easy way of knowing that?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I think the answer is it will come from your customers or your prospects' reactions to your prices and your proposals. So, for example, if you know what your sales conversion rate is, for example, so from every proposal that you send out to the sales that you actually get, if your sales conversion rate is significantly higher than 60, 70%, then you might be too cheap because you're converting too many too easily. Equally, if your conversion rate is very low, less than 10%, then maybe you're too expensive. So that's one thing you could look at. The other is just listening to the feedback from your customers and your prospects. So there's a simple process you can do called win-loss analysis. So just look at the last 20 clients that you've won and write down the reasons why you think you won that business, and the last 20 prospects that you didn't win and write down why you didn't think you won that business. And it won't always be about price. There'll be lots of reasons. So you need to work through that and try and glean what was important to those prospects that you lost and why you didn't win the business.
And actually, I'd just like to say I've actually got a blog post on the Bright Arts website, which actually takes you through that process of educating yourself about what happens when you lose a sale and how you should learn
Brilliant.
from that.
Exactly that. So yeah, really good process. And then the final one is just a little bit of gut instinct. I think if you're talking about your prices and you're not getting much pushback, or you're renewing annual contracts and that it's all a bit easy, then that will be a signal to me that you could think about improving your pricing without much impact, without much churn on your customer numbers.
So I guess it's almost a matter of friction that we're talking about. If you have no friction at all, maybe your prices are too low, and if you have too much friction, then your prices are probably too high. Would that be a simple way of
I think that's a good analogy. I think that's a good phrase. The level of friction you're experiencing in your sales and marketing activity will indicate to you the degree to which you got your pricing right or wrong.
And
So,
I would, yeah, what I would say is though that when you are putting your proposals together for people, when people say something's expensive or the price is high, don't immediately think that they don't want to buy it and that they won't buy it at that price, because people are always going to complain that something's expensive. It's our natural way of doing it. If you're going to go and buy a new house, it's still going to be more expensive than your last one, or your next car is going to be expensive. So I think you need to be prepared for that as well.
Yeah. Two suggestions on that point. If somebody says that, then one answer, if somebody says it's too expensive, then one response could be compared to what? So what are they comparing it to, that statement? What are they judging the value of what you're doing against something else? And the second point to make there is that there will always be somebody who's cheaper than you. Always, always, always. Anybody can sell cheap. It's your job how to work out how to add more value. So don't get caught up in that price battle. Work out how to add more value and charge a fee that's appropriate.
Okay, so moving on, how easy is it to change your pricing? Can I just wake up tomorrow morning and put all my prices up, or does it need a more considered approach?
Well, you could, of course, but I would always endorse having a well thought through plan of attack before you just put your prices up. So one answer to that is it's very easy to put your prices up. Of course it is. You just change the numbers on your website or on your price list or whatever. But behind that, you do need a well thought through plan and well thought out strategy. So that's what I help people do. But the point I would try and make here is this doesn't need to be overly difficult or overly complicated. So pricing for me is about thinking about what your customers value, what your product or service offers in terms of value, what your competition are doing, and what you want as a business. thinking about all of that through the lens of price, through the perspective of price. And actually, once you've done that, having a well thought through plan, which only needs to be a couple of pages, it doesn't need to be a huge, great document. That gives you huge confidence. Once you've worked it out properly, that gives you huge confidence then to go out to the market and say, well, this is what we do. This is the value that we offer, and these are the prices that we charge, and this is why. And once you've worked out all of those reasons, it makes it a lot easier for you to be clear about who you want to target, the price you want to sell at, and also, be willing to walk away when you do get that person who wants the cheapest price, and it's not something that you want to, engage with. So being willing to walk away is also one of the most powerful pricing strategies that you can have, because you've worked out exactly who you want to target, what you think the value is that you're going to offer them, and the price for that level of service.
I think it also is affected by maturity of your business or your current product or service that you're trying to get more sales for.
Definitely.
In that, I suppose, if you're a mature business and you've got good case studies that show that you work for a certain type of person, you deliver a certain type of result, and this is how much your investment is to get that result, then I think you're coming from a very strong position. And why should you compromise?
Exactly right. So I think that definitely helps. So having a good track record, evidence, case studies, that's all going to add to your credibility. And you should use that then to, bolster and justify your price positioning. Whereas if you're just starting out, that's always a lot harder. But I would say to anybody who's just starting out in terms of their price positioning, don't start cheap because you're new. Try and aim at the top of the market in terms of price and work out how you can add more value than your competitors. Do it the other way around. I was speaking to a business not so long ago, and they had 25 years of project management experience in the corporate world, and they were setting up a project management consultancy, and they'd only be going a couple of months and felt they couldn't charge high prices because they were new as a new business. But I said, hang on, you've got 25 plus years of corporate experience. That's what people are buying into. So you should price that experience in, and position yourself at the top end of the market. So thinking about, business maturity, whether you're a startup or an existing business, is an important point.
Yeah, and also actually there's an argument for, of course, if you're a young, innovative business, then maybe there's a value to that as well, that you're doing new things that other more established businesses might not be doing now.
Definitely. So if you're adding something that's new, something innovative, that's different, definitely think about how you can price that to your advantage rather than just following the herd and just copying everybody else. Yeah, definitely.
So going back to one of the reasons people don't start changing their prices to start improving their pricing is to do with the fear, and especially fear of going back and talking to their long-term clients and moving them on to different pricing packages or higher pricing packages.
Yeah.
What's the best approach with that? What should we be doing?
Yeah, so I think if let's say you're a fairly well-established business and you've got, a good set of clients, but you're just scared to have that price conversation with them. I mean, before we have that conversation, we need to have worked out the plan, right? We need to have worked out our strategy, which could be as simple as, well, we think we need to put our prices up by 3 to 5% or whatever the number is, because we haven't put our prices up for a number of years, and our costs are rising just like everybody else is. So we need to implement an inflationary price increase. So if that's the least that anybody is going to do, I would encourage that, because nobody is immune to inflation. The trick then is to work out your sales script for that conversation, or for that that letter that you've got to send. So you explain what you're doing and why very clearly. We're putting up our prices by 3 to 5%, and the main reason for that is because our costs have increased. But then you have to go back to selling hard what you do. So the rest of the conversation or the communication is about explaining why you still represent great value for money. You're committed to providing the best possible levels of service to your customers. so on and so on. So you have to work out that sales script, selling in that price value, and also have worked out which of your clients would you not mind if they were to walk away as a result of that price increase. So literally go through your whole list of clients and rate them high, medium, low in terms of impact on your business if you were to lose them. And what you'll find is that actually there's fewer clients that you would be sorry to lose than you think, if any at all. So I've done this exercise for a number of businesses and marketing agencies. And what we find is out of 100 clients, there's only maybe 5 that they will be sorry to lose. And when they've actually implemented the price increase, maybe only 2 or 3 have actually walked. So they're actually going to be a lot better off charging higher prices to 97 clients than they were charging lower prices to 100 clients. And that's a really important lesson as well. Just being confident about the value that you offer, having a well thought through pricing plan and strategy, and implementing it with clarity.
Great. That's fantastic advice. And can you share 3 introductory tactics that people could use, pricing tactics?
Yeah, so I think particularly for service businesses, the mistake that people often make is we just get stuck on a core price. It could be, a rate per hour, an hourly rate, or a day rate. So let's just take those 2 as examples, or that kind of, a time and materials based contract. So we're charging £50 an hour, £300 a day, £500 a day, whatever the number is, and we just cost everything up on that basis. We might have slightly different levels. So you might charge slightly more for the senior director and slightly less for a coordinator and a mid-range number for a developer or programmer. And then we cost up the number of hours or days it's going to take them to do the job. We multiply it up and there's your price. But the trouble with that approach is it's a one-size-fits-all price. So we're not giving our customers choice. And a far more effective way to offer your customers, a range of prices that lets them feel in control is to use what I call tiered pricing. So in America, they call it good, better, best pricing. You might know of it as gold, silver, bronze packages. And the reason they work so well is because if you're not sure exactly what your prospect or your client's attitude to price is, by presenting them with 3 numbers that are well spaced apart, you're hedging your bets a bit. So you're saying to your client or your prospect, here you go, Mr. Client, here's the set of options that you can choose. Which one do you want? And as long as you structure the price and the proposition correctly, so that as you go up the range, you offer increasing value, it makes it a lot easier for the client to see at a glance what you're selling and why you're charging the prices you are. And as a result, you are more likely to sell one of the higher priced packages than if you'd just gone in and said, well, we charge £500 a day and it'll take, 20 days of work. So thinking more creatively about your pricing using something like tiered pricing is a very powerful technique, and any service business would put themselves in a better place, I would say, if they adopted that kind of approach.
Is there with the tiered pricing, is there a limit on the price that you should be doing this for the type of business? Can you do this if you're selling £20,000 server installation or £1,000 smaller service? Does it matter?
No, it doesn't matter at all. The price of your service could be £1 or £100,000. It doesn't matter. You can do this. You can do tiered pricing at a product level. So you could have your prices on your website with 3 packages, or you can do it at an individual proposal level. So rather than having, a standard set of prices, every single time you make a proposal to a client, and let's say the kind of service you offer tends to be bespoke to a degree. So every single proposal you send out from now on should have should have 3 prices: a premium price, a standard price, and an entry price. And that you'll find, clients will be far more likely to buy, but also it gives you a stronger leverage in any negotiation. So they might say to you, well, Andrew, we love the entry price, but we really want this little widget that you've got in the premium offering. Can we have that as well? And the answer is, well, yes, of course you can, as long as you can deliver it, of course. And it's an add-on, it's an extra. So whether it's £100,000 or £1,000, definitely you can use tiered pricing for either. And the goal is to remember that the package you're trying to sell is always the middle one. If you structure your range correctly, your goal most of the time, 60% of the time, is to sell the middle option. Because, when customers are presented with three options, which ones do they normally choose? It's the middle one, right? So you're deliberately designing a pricing strategy to encourage people to choose that middle option. Does that make
And
sense?
yeah, no, that does make sense. Interesting. When you go on a lot of software as a service websites, you see that they actually have a corporate option as well. Do you think that's a tactic as well often?
Yeah, absolutely. So what they will have done is clearly worked out their audiences. So, typically for SaaS, IT services, anybody, selling that kind of tiered pricing thing, you'll have an SME price, a low end price for, £10 a user per month or whatever it is. You might have a medium sized market segment, 100 users plus, and you might be charging, 20, £30 a month or whatever, and then an enterprise level. And often for those, it's price on application, isn't it? They don't tend to say a price, or if they do, it's a much higher number. So those organizations will have clearly worked out what their customer segments are by looking at it through the lens of price. And that's a really important thing to do as well. So, break down your market segments as closely as you can and take a judgment on what you think their willingness to pay is. Don't always link it to size. Some people will be willing to pay more irrespective of their size. So think about it carefully. But size of business will generally be a useful indicator of willingness to pay as well.
Yeah, and also something I would say is charging people more isn't always about giving them more. It can actually be about giving them less to do and making it a more efficient product or service for them.
Completely. So yeah, adding in, guarantees, warranties, taking the load off their plate, doing more of the heavy lifting, the analysis, the implementation side, ongoing support. All of these are premium features that you should be including in your premium package and charging more for it. Whereas you shouldn't be including those in your entry price, for example. That's you just get the standard service at the entry price. So yeah, charging more means offering more value to the customer, which isn't exactly linked to the amount of time it takes you to do. It's about what the value is in the mind of the customer rather than the number of days or hours that you assign to that task.
Brilliant. That's fantastic. And do you have any thoughts about recurring pricing and fixed one-off project pricing? Is that something you help people with?
Yep. So whether it's recurring price or one-off projects, I think all the same principles apply. Recurring pricing, whether it's monthly subscription pricing or annual contracts, these are all good things to have, right? Because it's bringing in a steady stream of revenue into your business. So, and they have a price. So you need to put the same thought into your pricing if it's recurring pricing as you do if it's a one-off pricing project. So both equally important. All of the same rules apply to both. I wouldn't distinguish between them in terms of one's better than the other. In terms of pricing strategy, you need to put as much thought and effort into both or either, irrespective of its value to you as a business or to your customers.
Brilliant. Thank you. Is there one final takeaway that you can share with our listeners today, Mark, about pricing?
Yeah, I would just encourage people to look at their pricing strategy and think about it carefully. I think all too often we just leave it to the bottom of the inbox, the pile of things that we need to do because it's scary and horrible and it's a bit, it's risky, right? But I would say actually not looking at it is a more risky thing to do because in the long run you'll be selling yourself short. So have a look at your pricing, ask yourself, how long has it been since we really had a good look at this pricing? What other approaches could we take? There's plenty out there. I have over 50 pricing strategies and tactics that I use and talk about. None of them are difficult. You can find these things out easily on the internet. Don't think that pricing is just a dark art and it's only for large corporates or big brands. So do yourself a favor and just have a closer look and try and try and link your pricing to the value of the outcome of the service that you provide to your customer, rather than what it costs you to deliver. That's the biggest tip that I can make for any.
Fantastic. Thank you, Mark. That's wonderful advice. And where can people contact you and learn more about what you do?
Yep. So people can find more on my website, which is markpeacock.co.uk, or connect with me on LinkedIn, Mark Peacock, the pricing coach, or follow me on Twitter at the pricing coach. So happy to have any inquiries, discussions. If people have got questions, do drop me a line, and I'll be happy to try and help.
Thanks for joining us on the show today, Mark. That was wonderful advice that you shared with everyone. Yeah, thank you very much.
You're very welcome. It's great to talk with you today, Andrew.
Talk again soon. Bye now. And that was Mark Peacock, the pricing coach. Yeah, go and check out his website if you want to learn more about pricing. Wow, we got some great insights from Mark today. Of course, I run a marketing agency, so I'm often going to focus on marketing and sales. But I truly believe Mark's right. Many companies could do with improving their pricing, and it could be the fastest way for your business to improve its bottom line, without you having to sell anything extra or find new clients. Of course, everything needs to be advanced and improved in harmony. There's no point scoring 10 out of 10 on pricing if you only score 2 out of 10 on your service and 3 out of 10 for marketing and sales. Ideally, they all need to be advanced and working together in harmony. But I'd like to leave you with this one last thought about pricing. If you underprice your services, your clients won't take them seriously and they won't get the best result. So if you truly want to help people, you have a moral duty to price your services correctly. Okay, that's about it for this show. Thanks for listening to this episode. Be sure to subscribe and be the first to know about the next show. And if you're interested in growing, working and living smarter, be sure to check out my blog at brightarts.co.uk, or you can just Google Bright Arts Agency and you'll find my blog as well. Otherwise, until next time, stay smart. This podcast was brought to you by Bright Arts Agency.